So we need to understand that the first thing we need to shoot for is whole life prosperity. And today, many of the things that we're going to talk about has to do with that. How can we grow and achieve our financial goals without destroying the rest of our lives? Okay? Number two, the P principles. The P principles. As I finish researching for this book, I discovered a set of principles that are universal in nature. I was reading a book written by C.S. Lewis. Are you familiar with C.S. Lewis? He wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, and he wrote a book called Mere Christianity, and he talks about these principles, universal principles that have been set in motion since the creation of the earth, the creation of the universe. The same thing like, for example, the law of gravity, you know, and different laws that we have, the thermodynamic law and things like that. Things that have been with us since the beginning of creation. And he calls these principles the principles of Tao. Now, I decided not to call that in this book because some people thought when I started teaching this that I was promoting Taoism of some type of Eastern religion or something like that. So I call them P, capital P principles. Financial principles that are true all over the world, that are cross-cultural and timeless. That it doesn't matter where you live, or in which country you live, or what culture, or what language, or which time, in which time do you live. You may have lived 1,000 years before Christ, or you may live today in Namibia. These principles are always truth. So we are going to talk about these P principles, and I'm going to give you the 7 that I found doing research around the world. That's actually what got me my honorary doctorate degree in India, was the research on these universal principles. It doesn't matter which religion you have. It doesn't matter where you live. They are always truth, and they will always lead you towards prosperity. And I will share these findings with you. Now, I found 7. I could have found 8, 10, 15, 21. I don't know. I don't know why I found 7, but I found 7, and the 7 that I found, I'd like to share with you. But these principles are like your north. When I was still living in Argentina, I went to serve in the army. In my country, it was compulsory. When I was a young man, it was compulsory to be part of the army. So my country was in peace for 100 years, non-stop. So we had 100 years of peace. And the year that I got into the army is the year that we went to war with Great Britain for a couple of islands in the South Atlantic, So, lucky me. But one of the things, one of the things that I learned about living in the army is that in our trainings, sometimes they will drop us off in an area with a lot of trees, in a wooded area, very, very heavily wooded, at night, in the middle of the night. And you will be there, and they will give you a place, where you have to go, and give you no maps, and you could not see the sky, so you couldn't see the stars or the moon and things like that, but you need to achieve, that goal of reaching a place. So the only thing they will give you is a compass. Now, the compass did not point the way to our destination. What did the compass pointed to? North. North. But if we knew where our north was, then we could plot our way towards our destination. Same thing with these P principles. These P principles are your north. if you know them and obey them, you can go anywhere you want in your financial life. They will not point you to your financial success, because your financial success is your own destination. See, your destination is different than my destination. But if you know where the north is, you can reach it, right? So that's how these P universal, capital P principles work. And we're going to talk more about them in the rest of the day, so don't worry about that. The third basic idea, so these kind of there are three unrelated ideas, but they are part of the foundation of everything we're going to say today. The whole life prosperity, the capital P principles, and then number three, the concept that being is much more important than doing. One of the great discoveries I did writing this book on how do I make it to the end of the month is, does it sound familiar to you, this question? Yeah, the other day I was with somebody in the Ukraine and came up to me and said, Dr. Panasiuk, the next book you write, can you write how do I make it to the end of the week? Because the month is way too far. So I said, okay, I'm going to consider that for the next book. But for now, you have to do with the month, okay? So, but writing this book on how do I make it to the end of the month, one of the great discoveries that I did is that when you're talking about your financial life, when you're talking about your business, when you're talking about your professional life, being is much more important than doing. Being is much more important than doing, because your being drives your doing. Who you are on the inside is going to drive your decisions on the outside. One of our founders, Dr. Larry Burkett, used to say, the way that we handle our finances is an outside indicator of an inside spiritual condition. And I thought, that was a great insight into our life. The way that we handle our finances is an outside indicator of who I am on the inside. And I came across this truth by chance, because right in the middle of the book, I was halfway through, and I suddenly realized I was asking people to make a lot of changes. Suddenly I realized, I'm asking people to change this and change that and change these other things. These people are going to get so discouraged. So right here, smack in the middle of the book, I need to write, some encouraging words, something that will encourage them now to get to the other half of the book. So I decided to stop writing and go and do a research on success literature. I said, I'm going to do some research on success literature and then write some things that will, encourage me. So I started doing research on success literature. One of the books that I read was one called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey's book. And in that book, I found out that Stephen Covey had found some of the same ideas that I had found. He had done a research on 200 years of success literature in the United States. And doing a research on 200 years of success literature in the United States, he found out that the first 150 years of success literature was literature that he calls the literature of the heart. I call it the being literature. It's a literature that told people, if you want to be successful, you have to be honest. If you want to be successful, you have to be patient. If you want to be successful, you have to be perseverant. If you want to be successful, you have to be organized. Okay? It was literature that primarily focused on the being, on who the person was. And that was a literature primarily that went from the beginning of the nation up to 1940. In the 1940s, and immediately after the soldiers came back from World War II, a new set of literature, success literature, show up in the American market. And it's called, he calls it, the literature of the hands. I call it the doing literature. It's the how-to books. How to be rich in 40 days. 5 steps for economic success. How to make friends and sell them anything you want to sell them. And things like that. You know what I am talking about? Okay, the how-to books. This is a much more pragmatic literature, organized, structured, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Now, the doing literature is not bad. On the contrary, I think that it helped us to organize ourselves and organize the way that we think. What happens to us, to you and to me, people who live outside the United States, is that we don't realize that 50 years of doing literature is built on top of 150 years of being literature. See? Now, the problems that you and I have living outside the United States in a developing country is that the distribution networks for distributing books around the world exploded after World War II. So when you go into this town, into a bookstore to look for success literature, what literature do you think you find? Being or doing? Doing. See? So you buy this book, you take it to your business, you take it home, you apply it to your life, and it doesn't work. It does not work. And you wonder, how can it be? This is such a well-known author, bestseller of everything and all this, that, you know, all of these things, and it's not working for us. You start wondering why it's not working. Why do you think it's not working? Because this is what type of literature? Doing. And what are you missing? Being. And you know what? Americans don't even know it. They don't know it. Because after 150 years of being literature, they are passing along these truths from parents to children without even knowing it. Because it has become part of the DNA of society. Now, since the 1970s, they have been abandoning this being literature. And that's why we have situations like Enron and WorldCom and all of these things that we see today, because they are focusing too much in doing literature. You know what Harvard and Yale have done? They have opened courses on morality and ethics for business people. What are they realizing? They have gone too far into doing, they need to start working on the being. That's why this book, How Do I Make It to the End of the Month, is divided in 2 big parts. The first part is the being, and the second part, the doing. Exactly. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about, the 7 principles, which is part of our being, and then the 7 ingredients, which is part of our doing. And this is very important because your being drives your doing. The way that you make financial decisions shows on the outside who you are on the inside. See, how you make financial decisions shows me who you are. What do you value in your life? And we're going to get to that in just a second.